has been established for the community. The number to call is 508-924-5155. Again, the number to call is 508-924-5155. Mr. Morales, will you please make this announcement in Spanish?
Si desea escuchar la reunión en español, se ha establecido una línea telefónica para que la comunidad pueda llamar y tenga acceso a interpretación en español de la reunión en vivo. El número a llamar es el 508-924-5155.
Thank you so much. For those who are unable to observe at this time, the meeting is being recorded and can be accessed on the PGCPS YouTube channel for later viewing. Lastly, for recording purposes, the chair reminds all board members to please turn on their microphones when speaking. Ms. Barton, please call the roll.
Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Adams Stafford,
Present.
Ms. Boozer Struther,
Present.
Mr. Briggs,
Present.
Mrs. Frazier, Dr. Harris,
Present.
Mr. Jackson, Mr. Jongo, Dr. Miller,
Present.
Ms. Walker.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you so much. The chair recognizes Vice Chair Dr. Kenneth Harris to lead us in the board prayer.
Let us pray. Oh God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, steer us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Amen. Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If there are no objections, the October 17th, 2024 agenda will be approved. Hearing no objections, the October 17th, 2024 agenda is approved. The chair will now acknowledge public speakers. You have been registered to speak in a public comment forum where the Board of Education will listen to your comments. The board will not address your comments. All registered speakers will have 3 minutes to make their presentation. Registered speakers may not relinquish any part of their speaking time to any registered or unregistered individuals. Speakers may not address individuals or issues with profanity or derogatory terms. You will be warned once. If you continue, your comments will be muted and you may be removed from the meeting. Speakers are encouraged to use titles rather than names, for example, principal, superintendent, deputy superintendent, etc. Your adherence to these guidelines will enable the public participation process to move smoothly. We have one registered public commenter, Dolores Millhouse, individual, effective communications and engagement strategies. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening or good afternoon, everyone. I just want to start and say that we understand that there's a culture here at PGCPS, and who we are and what we do is around being PGCPS proud. We are an entity that believes that if we educate our children, right, as a collective, is the mic not on? I need my time back then. Okay, thank you very much. We are here to educate our children as a collective, right? So it's a culture here that we have to understand that together, we have to do that with open and clear communication. And we communicate who we are and what we do, then we have to move forward in doing that. And so tonight, I just want to thank you all for allowing me to be here. I want to thank the Acting Chief of Communications and Engagement for the plan that you all put together. I read it in its entirety, and I just have a couple of suggestions what I would like to see to make it more inclusive for me as a stakeholder. When I read the plan, I needed to better understand the impact of what I needed to do as a community stakeholder for this communication piece. You providing information, sending information out, but is it speaking from a voice that resonates with me? as not only a parent member, as a community member, as a business member. I want to make sure that when we say that we are invested in making sure that we are creating globally ready children, that we are doing it with the understanding that if we don't frame the message of who we are, the media in the world begin to depict us different from what we know that we're doing here in PGCPS. So I want to make sure that in this messaging, we can identify a way that we collect information, that we go out and have a survey that talks about where and what we need to do from a communication lens. How can we improve on it? You've come up with some very great ideas and things to put in place, but are we sure that that's the right starting point? Where are we right now? We can talk about communication with transportation. We can go on about that forever. We can talk about communication with, for me, 504 plans. We can talk about that forever. But what I know is I need transparency. I need it to be okay to say that we don't know, but together we will find out. I need timely information. And I need you to know that what may be happening centrally, what may be happening on the northern side of it, or what they may have on the southern side, there may be a different feel, but together what we're saying as PGCPS, that we're an entity that together that we believe that what we are doing for our students are making sure that they have the education to be the best in the country and in the world. So in this plan, I need to make sure that my voice is resonated through this plan. I need to make sure that information is not just being pushed to me, but it's given to me so I can be an active part of the planning and development so that we are hitting every layer. I want to see students who are in the CRI programs to be spread across our media. I want to see the students in our CTI program, every student where we're touching them. Parents, teachers, board members, we need to move from a collective voice, but see and appreciate the diversity that we have in our individual voices. Thank you all, and have a good night.
Thank you so much, Ms. Millhouse, for your participation and public comment. The chair recognizes the Acting Chief of Communications, Mr. Luis Morales, to discuss the work session topic, stakeholder engagement and communication. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Walker, Vice Chair Harris, and members of the Prince George's County Board of Education. Good evening to the public that are tuning into this live stream and are here with us today as well. Muchas gracias a todo el público que está con nosotros hoy esta tarde. The Division of Communications and Community Engagement is excited to present this high-level communications plan to the Board of Education this evening with the support of Superintendent House and all chiefs who have helped inform this plan. I think it's important that we start our presentation by outlining our process. This process is guided by best practices and informed by years of research and experience that help execute successful campaigns. As a division, we are tasked with uplifting the voices of our internal and external stakeholders, the important work happening every day within our district, and ensuring the information is accurate and digestible across audiences. To do this successfully, it is imperative that we guide our storytelling decisions through this informed process. As you can see here, our communication cycle for each campaign should be guided by this cycle, apologies. To function effectively, our division must receive the information, determine the goals, target audience, develop effective messaging, determine the channels and activities that will support the goals, solidify this into a tangible action plan, develop the necessary materials, implement the campaign, and evaluate the campaign and make the modifications where necessary. We are often faced with stakeholders who want to start at the materials phase of this process, which can negatively affect outcomes and result in unmet goals. This is why stakeholders will see lead times of 4 to 6 weeks when submitting requests through our existing communications form. The process is key to success. Our team is able to adapt this process in crisis situations in a compressed timeline, but that should not be the standard. Our communications plan is robust and depends on the collaboration across divisions and stakeholders. PGCPS employees, students, families, and communities do amazing work and deserve to be uplifted in a strategic manner that promotes a culture of transparency, educational excellence, and highlights why we are all PGCPS proud. One of the easiest ways to amplify this message and the work is to tag your social media posts exactly that, Hashtag PGCPSProud. This is a way that any stakeholder can contribute to the narrative from the comfort of their classroom, desk, or event for more robust storytelling. Our team often pulls ideas from this very content and may even repost items on our social media pages. Our work is guided by the PGCPS mission. The Division of Communications and Community Engagement partners with internal and external stakeholders to amplify and elevate district initiatives and achievements, providing students, staff, and families with the necessary information to foster an exceptional educational experience while informing the public narrative and perception. More importantly, our vision is to have a communication strategy that is led by a culturally responsive communications and engagement team, equipping our families with the necessary information to support the development of distinguished learners, leaders, voices of social justice, and advocates for humanity for the world of today, tomorrow, and beyond. On the following slides, we will review the division goals, objectives, and outcomes as we move to work forward during the 24-25 school year. Our first goal centers around the establishment of efficiencies and proper accountability. As we move the work forward during this school year, we are identifying varying needs to enhance division structures to ensure a more efficient ecosystem within the Communications and Community Engagement Division. This is being informed by department audits, process reviews, and monthly division meetings where each team member has an opportunity to voice what they are seeing on the ground and how the work is affected. For the 24-25 school year, the division has been temporarily restructured to allow the chief to have 5 direct reports. The direct reports are the Offices of Communications, Interpretation and Translation, Multimedia, Web Services, and Family and Community Engagement. Over the years, there have been numerous shifts within the division structure, and this has led to some confusion internally and externally around what the division encompasses and the supports that are offered. With this temporary structure, we are assessing what is working well and what may need to shift. As an example, we identified the need for a more robust intake process for requests. This new process is being piloted and will be rolled out before the end of the year. The new process will ensure stakeholders are aware of their supports up front, provide automatic notification to the applicable office, will allow the office to assess the request, and provide tailored guidance and ensure all appropriate offices are looped into a request from the onset. We will engage across divisions and external stakeholder groups as needed to provide additional presentations and/or walkthroughs on updated processes and ensure a better understanding of the resources available. Coupled with our branding enforcement, this will also support our storytelling efforts as we look to move as one band, one sound. It's important that we have one cohesive look for consistency. Goal number 2 is our embodiment of equity and excellence. We must be culturally responsive and meet people where they are. This means that our robust strategy must include partnerships with media, toolkits for the digital age, and PGCPS produce packages that help inform the narrative with accurate, timely information about PGCPS programs, division, and resources. These items will help stakeholders become boots-on-the-ground advocates and increase ownership in sharing content and stories, including our very own Board of Education members. The Division of Communications and Community Engagement understands that our resources are finite and capacity is limited given our current staffing. That said, we are making necessary changes to optimize our intake and workflow and allow for our stakeholders to have the timely and accurate information they need to properly engage with their school communities and the district at large. The Department of Family and Community Engagement is leading this work in a variety of ways, including the provision of educational sessions for parent engagement groups. We have also decided to take that a step further with our first inaugural Family Institute conference on November 9th. It will be engagement like this that will bolster our parents and guardians' abilities to more effectively advocate for their students. We will also be instituting feedback surveys for all presentations within the department to better inform our strategy. We want to be sure that stakeholders are walking away with the information they need and ensure understanding of the information they have received. If surveys show that something is missing or presentations need to be shifted or increased, we want to respond to that in real time. We also know that our families depend on our school websites for quick information. While the PGCPS website has so much great content, the web services team manages over 28,000 pages of information. As a division, it is imperative that we maintain accurate information where parents access it most. For that reason, we will increase our webpage audits to ensure information is accurate and accessible. We have recently refreshed our site to enhance the user experience and encourage our families to visit the site to see their students and schools featured on our website blogs. We are also working with our AI chatbot to increase efficiency in navigating our site and provide more direct links between the information our visitors are seeking and the chat feature. One of the division's major challenges has been the lack of involvement of communications and engagement at the front end of the projects. This challenge is not unique to our district or school communications in general, but it remains a challenge nonetheless. As the subject matter experts in our area, it is important that we provide guidance and see it through implementation to ensure successful campaigns across stakeholder groups. But again, we understand our resources are finite, and internal and external stakeholders have work that needs to move forward. To provide a better foundation for informed autonomy, our division will be performing audits to ensure best practices are being followed and we are in compliance with state and federal law. This will include language, branding, and web page audits, as mentioned earlier. This will be an important opportunity to provide education to bring items back into compliance and branding guidelines. This will also allow an informed approach as internal stakeholders are moving their work forward. We understand that things happen and will view these opportunities as educational opportunities to bolster informed autonomy of internal stakeholders. Target audiences will vary by campaign, but are a key part in informing the communication strategy. Depending on the campaign event story, we tailor our approach to be effective in reaching the desired outcome based on the target audience. This will often decide which resources are engaged, how they are used, and to what degree. Currently, PGCPS engages in a number of tools and communication channels to distribute our key messages. Information is tailored to the respective platform, as the target audience, platform limitations, and engagement may vary. The tools we use are very important, and they're an important part of moving this work forward. We are always assessing each tool for effectiveness and will make recommendations to the superintendent when a change may be required. These tools are a significant component of the division's budget. Our division collects numerous data points to support our decisions with programming and campaigns. Board members also received a more detailed plan that highlights the significant numbers of events, educational opportunities, and campaigns owned by the division. These stakeholder engagement opportunities are ample and must be streamlined to ensure a more proactive approach to our communication strategy as we move away from a consistently reactive approach. To make this shift, we have to consistently analyze the data collected and make informed decisions around engagement opportunities that must be reimagined, increased, and/or sunset. In plain terms, the division is currently executing beyond its capacity, which may lead to a decline in the quality, accuracy, and consistency of output produced. This could also affect division morale and burnout. This is why we are looking to build structures and processes which will allow informed autonomy for departments and schools, along with clear defined criteria for engagement opportunities and support. This will result in some requests being reimagined, declined, and/or shifted. When declined, we should always be providing an alternative solution. And again, this here serves as a snapshot of our current engagement opportunities across stakeholders. This does not include the requests generated through our communication support form. Those requests are received, considered alongside the established workload, and responded to accordingly. Our partnership with the Board of Education is paramount. As elected leaders, you have the eyes and ears of your community. This is why it is important that we support the board office when appropriate and respect the ethics of such support. As elected members, there are independent events the Board of Education members may hold where existing talking points, materials, and other items may be shared, in addition to marketing templates and/or video photography equipment. On occasion, there are events where PGCPS and the Prince George's County Board of Education may partner, such as the recently held Men Make a Difference Day event, and this will result in a slight increase of support. We also encourage our media partners to direct district-specific questions to media@pgcps.org, but that has not always been the case. In some instances, our media partners are looking for the direct opinions of the board members and/or requesting interviews to discuss their perspectives, and these should be facilitated by the board office. Alternatively, there may be opportunities to participate in a shared media opportunity where the communications team will staff the PGCPS employee and facilitate coordination and collaboration with the board office. Systemic inquiries regarding day-to-day operations should be directed to media@pgcps.org for a timely response. Similarly, the Division of Communications and Engagement supports 206 schools with the following: emergency notification messages, interpretation services, translation services, event highlights, site visit and medical media facilitation, media guidance and inquiry support, trainings and information sessions, and branding compliance. We work with our schools in these instances to provide information to their school community. Schools should also redirect media inquiries to media@pgcps.org. Our partnerships with principals are key to effectively executing this area of our strategy. We want to make the experience as smooth as possible while ensuring timely and accurate information. As I begin to close out the presentation, I want to highlight some significant gains and achievements across our division as we work to tell the best story for PGCPS that we deserve. In looking at this information here, some of the highlights include post reach being up by 37%, 3-second views up by 116%, 1-minute views up by 258%. Our Instagram has also increased, our LinkedIn continues to increase, and along with our web, we have very high traffic, and we're also working actively to resolve issues as we have 435 tickets for website assistance with 99% satisfaction rating. For our Office of Interpreting and Translation, some of the highlights include 6,082 systemic and school-based meetings and events, 258,548 telephonic interpreting minutes with parents and caregivers, 100% of public Board of Education meetings with Spanish simultaneous interpretation and ASL. And on our family and community partnership side, we manage 103 MOU and partnerships, plus 209 formally adopted schools by business and community partners, 6 Family Institute sessions reaching 270 families, and 9 transportation information sessions this year. Finally, as we move forward, there will be key focus areas to improve our ecosystem to best support all stakeholders. These will include our commitments to refine processes to clearly define intake and workflow, ensure consistent accountability at all levels to promote growth, analyze data to determine new initiatives and sunset others, ensure robust understanding of division programs and resources, and bolster informed autonomy for departments to allow proper workflow. With these focus areas, we will make vast improvements in our efforts to communicate transparently, efficiently, and effectively to all stakeholder groups. Here you will see the temporary organization chart for the current fiscal year as we work to realize necessary changes. There is ample information that we push out to our stakeholders and a variety of platforms we use to do it. We want to encourage all stakeholders to connect with us across all platforms to receive information as it becomes available. You can find us on our PGCPS website for important stories and information, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, formerly known as Twitter, TikTok, which is in its infancy stage, School Messenger, where you can subscribe on our website. It's the best way to receive text alerts, and Parent View. Above all, we want our communities to know that we are committed to enhancing our communication and engagement efforts and improving the consistency and quality of our communications to better serve all stakeholders. Sobre todo, queremos que nuestras comunidades sepan que estamos comprometidos a mejorar nuestra comunicación y nuestros esfuerzos de participación y a mejorar la consistencia y la calidad de nuestras comunicaciones para servir mejor a todas las partes interesadas. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to add that we've really made a concerted effort to not only hear and listen to our community, hear and listen to the board, but also hear and listen to our children as well in terms of how and what needs to be communicated. So I'm very pleased with the department's effort thus far over the course of this school year to really build upon exactly what we've heard. It's extremely important that our community knows that we're listening and we're looking to execute on what we hear.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Morales and Mr. House. The chair recognizes any board members who may have discussion and/or questions for Mr. Morales and his staff. Board members, please be mindful that the questions and responses from administration should be captured within our 2.5 minutes. Please be aware of this as you ask your questions. Board staff is here to also capture any questions that will require a follow-up. These follow-up questions and answers will be posted on board docs and the board website for the public to see. Our first light will go to Board Member Zipporah Miller, followed by Board Member Shayla Adams Stafford.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Mr. Morales, thank you for the robust presentation that you gave on the efforts that you're making to ensure that we engage our families, that communication, we are transparent with our communication, which is really, really important to all our stakeholders. Superintendent House, you said something that was music to my ears, so I just want to repeat it. When you said we were listening, you said we're listening to our scholars. And it's so important that we amplify student voice. So hearing that was just brought music to my heart to hear that, so thank you. So my question was around, more so around the family and community engagement. And one of the things that I encountered as I go from school to school were twofold. One, there was a PTA that was trying to get started, and I knew that your office would probably be the right office to help them get started, but they still had challenges. So can you speak to how and what supports you can give to school PTAs, PTSOs, so that they can get started, and some of them are even struggling with engagement? So that's my first question. The second one, I only have two, was with fingerprinting. Something that I hear resounding a lot is I want to engage with the school, I want to take part, I want to, partner with the school, but the fingerprinting process seems to be a stumbling block. To speak to how we can ensure that when parents are ready to get started, we don't want them to get frustrated and then step away. If they say they want to engage, we want to engage them. So just about how we can support our parent organizations, and then also with the fingerprinting process.
And Board Member Miller, I'll take the first portion of that question in reference to how we support our leaders in our communities. Actually, the engagement office, and I know this simply because I actually participated at I think 6 or 7 o'clock session just night before last, where we invited as many parent leaders out to engage them, to give them information, but to also provide different ideas, structures, systems, processes of how they could actually lead on their community. That's actually something that happens on a quarterly basis, and we're looking forward to continuing. I actually had the opportunity to present to that group during that time period.
Yes, thank you, Superintendent House, and thank you, Board Member Miller. So to add to that, we have heard the concern, and we know that we have these quarterly presentations. So that is why, as a part of this plan, we are adding those survey mechanisms so that we can respond in real time to make sure people are actually understanding what they're walking away with. That's also why we added the November 9th event, which will focus around information just as that. And then in terms of the fingerprinting process, we have a volunteer coordinator who, if you all have someone that is concerned, if you can connect us with them, we can have that person help walk them through the process.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Board Member Adams Stafford.
Thank you so much. So I am really encouraged to hear about just some of the support that you offer to board members. And I know that it has been a pain point of the board not having a centralized communication portal for us to get information out and to share upcoming events that we have. And so I was happy to sponsor and that the board passed our communications team that will be coming on to support us as well. So I want you to talk a little bit more about how you foresee your team working with the board's new communication team that will be coming on. And then also, I wanted to see if you could talk a little bit more about just I don't know that I know you have a public information office. That's what we're considering like public relations generally. So I think what we as board members, and I won't speak for everyone, but I think one thing that I'm concerned about is the perception of PGCPS in the greater media and in the greater community. And so, I think there's so many opportunities for us to tell our story, to tell our narrative. And I think that a narrative gets told about us and our students and our families. And so I'm wondering, do you all ever do like, surveys, polls to determine like the net image that people have of PGCPS, and then after a campaign or after a series of positive events determine, like do that poll again and see, has your perception of PGCPS changed? Because the reality is we're trying to attract the best and brightest teachers to come here, and we have some amazing statistics. We have the most diverse pool of nationally board certified teachers. We're in the top 5 in the nation, and how are we telling that story in a way that affects our overall brand and image? And so I would like to see more of that in this plan to improve our perception regionally, because I think nationally people know that this is a huge school district. We're producing great students, but I think regionally we always sort of get the short end of the stick at times when it comes to the perception of what our students can do. So.
Thank you for that question. So in terms of the board's communication team, I think it's a balance, right, between the ethics of it and the workload that we have on behalf of the district. But I think what I tried to do here in this plan was outline how we could support in terms of providing guidance. And I don't think that changes with that team. I think if there are challenges, we're happy to provide guidance. So I definitely can see that level of support. And then templates, right? I think if they're just getting started and they're trying to figure things out, we can definitely support with providing templates that you all can have them fill in. And, as they see things that they may want to change, that's something the board office could own. Can I answer the second question? Okay. And so with regard to telling our story and the Public Information Office, so part of what we're doing now is changing our approach to how we're handling media relations. And without getting too into the weeds, it really is shifting from that more reactive to a more proactive approach, which I think addresses what you're talking about. But also the output of high quality content. And the fact of the matter is that the only way to get to high quality content is to make sure that folks have the professional development necessary to produce that content. And so part of what we are talking about as a team on a weekly basis is what are the projects, going back to the point in the plan, what are the projects, what are the views, what is the engagement? Can we sunset something else to put those resources towards producing a more high quality item that will better tell our story, whether it's I don't want to spoil something that's coming up, but whether it's something shedding light on particular departments, particular initiatives, we are looking at the series that we currently have and how do we elevate those things and properly align resources to create more of that content to better inform that narrative and also take control of those stories.
Yeah, and I think we'd like to see, as you're testing those things out, we'd like to see basically the impact of that in the community, like before and after. Does that have an impact, as you all are, 4.5 million impressions?
Mm-hmm.
That's a massive reach of people that are, or not necessarily people, but, people that are connecting with our social media in terms, or maybe that they're connecting multiple times, but what I'm saying is it making an impact in their perception of the school system?
Thank you for
Thank
bringing
you,
that.
Mr. Morales. If you could just answer that when we come right back.
Sure.
We have 3 other board members,
Sure.
but for that one, if you can just take a note of that so you can come back to that answer, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. Next, we'll have Board Member Boozer Strother, followed by Board Member Briggs.
Yeah, thank you so much for this presentation in detail. It's the most I've seen in the 6 years I've been on the board, so I want to say it's very much appreciated to see it all in one place, and to be able to prepare as a board member for upcoming events and to think about engagement. I did want to talk about sort of the parent experience over the years and the grade bands and how communication changes from elementary to middle and high school, and kind of where parents spend their time and their expectations of communication. There's a resource that the Parent Community Advisory Council created called the Jumpstart Your Engagement with PGCPS, which I thought was a really great idea that Dolores Millhouse brought forward, and really resonated, with my experience when I think back to 10 years and when I started. If I had a handout that said you need to sign up for School Messenger, you need to sign up for now Parent View, all in one place under this thing we all do. You're now a parent in PGCPS, pre-K, kindergarten. We are now going to this is your guidebook, and we never really had that until the PCAC created this. So right now it's on the website, but it is outdated with SchoolMax. So I was wondering if we could get support around that concept and the document itself, and the concept that this is a big part of being a PGCPS parent. I think would help a lot of parents out, and how we push that out. And then the arc of communications, I really appreciated Class Dojo as a elementary school parent, and I really think it should continue in middle schools. I know some middle schools have adopted it. There is an expectation that our students are going to be independent communicators, and I don't think it's really happening for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. I think we do need to do more, that the parent is still really engaged in that way with the school. And then at high school, it's social media and the website, and I would encourage more social media training of our clubs and athletic teams that do most of the communication out of our high schools, to create a training of we're going to teach you how to be really good on Instagram, because we recognize this is where just about parents are now getting our information about our children's activities through Instagram. That is, if I want to engage in something in high school, I've got to watch the Northwestern High School Instagram accounts. So there's just there's this shift that happens that I think could be delved into.
And that's great feedback, and we'll take all of those items into consideration. Actually, in reference to the Class Dojo, we've actually had some conversation with Class Dojo about what a district account would look like. So we're in the midst of some of that, but we'll definitely take those things into account. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Briggs.
Thank you so much, Chair. I first want to say, I echo my colleagues. I think this is great that you all have listened to the community. You have taken steps to address something that I think has been a behemoth, which is communication and just the challenges that we face together. So I want to start by saying that, because I think that this is really being responsive to the call to action from the community. I also want to offer I think, some pieces of feedback for consideration, because I feel like I experienced different things as a board member, which I think might be different from the administration. And so I think from that perspective, I really want to just caution. I know that when I was reading it the first time without additional context, and I was reading narrative, I was reading it in a different way, which I think can read as propaganda. And I think that can also, in a person's mind, say, is this transparency? Are you just kind of telling me what's happening? Or are you propagandizing me, saying that this is happening, but then when I look out my window, or when I'm walking to school, or when I'm looking at the buses, it doesn't actually reflect what's coming from the school district? So I want to just caution that and say that that's a big piece. I think also, it's really, it's great that we're focused on metrics. It's great that we're focused on a data-driven approach. But I do think, again, to the language piece, it can come off more as a business strategy. And when we think about schools are social institutions, right? They're not businesses. They are social institutions, and specifically public schools are social institutions that are federally funded, right? So they have a responsibility to do certain things based on the context of the law. And I think that when we think about it from that way, then it really is our community are our partners, because they're funding our schools, right? These are taxpayer dollars. And so a lot of the things that I hear when I go to events or when I'm called to events is things about funding. Where is the money going? Why is PGCPS not taking advantage of a federal grant or a state grant or other things. They may hear this in the news and they may have opinions about it. Safety. Parents want to know that PGCPS has a strong communication strategy together for safety. There was an incident at a school in my district that parents wanted to know more about. What exactly is the communication strategy? And I was just hoping to see that here. Academics. I think that academics is one of the big pieces, right? You choose to send your child to a school district because they have strong academics, they have strong outcomes. How can we get ahead of that narrative and put that out? And I'll go on and on about, I think transportation, we already know what to do there, but I would also say internal communication. I know there's a number of requests coming from the community, from board members, and there's just been a bit of a backup, and I would love to see this a part of that strategy. I have probably 2 more bullets that I'll come back around to say, but I just wanted to give that feedback that I think as we're thinking about this could really be an opportunity to make things more accessible, stuff that could be really hard for parents. Funding, they may say, I'm reading this, but what does this mean? We could bring that down and make it make sense for them so they understand, oh, this is what you did with the money, this is where it's going. So I think that there's a bit of an opportunity there too, to kind of think about it from that standpoint versus just the social media piece.
Thank you so much for those considerations. We're going to move to Board Member Jackson, followed by Vice Chair Harris.
Thank you. I had a comment, but when I was listening to Board Member Briggs, I agree with him for the most part, but education is a social institution, but there's definitely a business component to it. And the thing that I just want to know more about is the strategy as far as our communication strategy or just our presence. Like, how do we plan to infiltrate the world with the good news that PGCPS has to offer? I mean, just being on the platforms is one thing. Like, I'm just reminded, and I know at a short time, I'm just reminded of a certain ethnic group in America who was once looked at, not favorably, but they bought their image. They took back their image by buying different spaces in media, print ads, magazines, all of these things, and now they're looked at as the model immigrant now, and they fight a stereotype because of it. So I'm saying, like, I just don't know our strategy on how we plan to figure out, like, where are we targeting our energy to revamp the brand of PGCPS, because we have so many great things to offer. And I think there should be a business or like a corporate focus on how to like elevate our brand. I just want to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think that's why, to your point and to Board Member Briggs' point, both are equally important, and that's why the data has to drive a lot of these decisions, because we cannot get to the point you're talking about until we correct some of this workflow and some of this intake and some of this planning ability, because as I mentioned, we're operating in a very reactive manner right now because our plate is overflowing. And so that's why the focus right now is to look at everything that we have, all the things we're putting energy into, and where are the sweet spots where we can refocus, realign our limited budget to reinforce and then get in a place where our systems are so solid that we are able to just uplift those stories, uplift them to the national media. Part of that will be how we're engaging with media, and then looking at our resources. I'll give you one really quick example. We've had a discussion with HR about ad buying, right, and how we're currently doing ads for human resources. There's a more strategic way to do that, and we're collaborating on that.
Thank you so much. Vice Chair Harris?
Yes, thank you. So first off, thank you for the presentation, Mr. Morales. To think about it from the two sides, from what my colleague, Mr. Briggs and Mr. Jackson said, and to think about it as a business perspective and a social perspective. From the business side, what I'd like to see is the specifics of these metrics tied to a particular goal that you have, and then almost to pull in that social aspect of things. What is the ROI on each of these goals that we've achieved? Throughout the plan, just poking at number, goal 2, objective 2, says the communication office will increase toolkit development by 50% to support XYZ. I already know that office communication is overflowing with responsibilities and things that they need to do. And a lot of places throughout this plan, it says increase 50%, increase 75%. And so where are you pulling resources from to then get you to the goal of having a 50% return on whatever it is that you're looking to get to? Speaking of that same goal to objective two, and this is a question, so I'll pause here. It says, again, the communication office will increase toolkit development by 50%. Is that the same toolkit that's identified on page 10, where it just has a list of your tools and your channels that are used, or is it a different toolkit, like per individual instance?
Yeah, thank you for that. So we should be looking at each campaign and developing toolkits for individual campaigns. I think somebody said it earlier, these toolkits should be robust and include everyone, all stakeholders in mind, and be set up to simply grab the materials, post it wherever you need to post it, print whatever you need to print. So that's what we'll be working on and increasing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification there. And again, I guess the follow-up question around the tools would be, if we do have some form of, again, ROI on the tools that we're using, how impactful those tools are. Like I see the AI chatbot on there, for example, and I see that we have an amazing opportunity with that if we develop the logic and the back end of this AI chatbot and what we want to do with it. But presently, right now, as it stands, how much of our time and resource are we putting into development of these tools, and then how much are we getting back out from them? I'll pause there until round two. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Was that a comment, or are you looking for? Okay. Thank you so much. Before we move to round two, I'll just ask my questions here. The first I have is a comment just to engage PCAC. It was going to be, how are you leveraging PCAC in order to get your data? But my comment is to please engage PCAC. They're here and willing to work. The next, especially for this parent voice that also tap into the community even differently than we do as board members. The second is, how can we better utilize in raw form our scholars, our community, our board members? So time and time again, we say, hey, use us to get out information. But that's as easy as taking a video real quick at a board meeting for 1 minute and that be the reel. Not to go up and make it fancy or anything, but whatever question you have to be able to leverage it. So I don't need you to answer it now, but maybe leverage that strategy of using these 1 minute reels or something like that to get out in a raw form. We, students that come, whatever that case may be, to be able to leverage that in our social forums. I just think that when people talk about the voice of PGCPS, telling our narrative, that is literally telling our narrative without the fancy on top. It's real life, it's right now. I would love to see a showcase of specialty schools, what we're doing inside of our specialty schools, wins, not only specialty schools, but also our tag programs, which fall under specialty, but sometimes get left to the side. Our trades, for instance, our trading schools, they're doing amazing work. And we know that we're college ready, we're college bound, we have amazing education here in Prince George's County, but our trades are here to stay. And what are they doing, right? We're building a house, we're doing all the things, but also that raw footage inside, which, by the way, the schools can do and give it to you. So thank you for considering that as well. And then you kind of touched on it, but I said, how are we leveraging billboards and public-facing ads? And you kind of touched on what are we doing for ads, so thank you for that, because I'd love to drive down the street and be like, that's PGCPS right there. Oh, that's somebody from District 9 right there. I know that scholar, it's not clip art, you know? So thank you so much. I appreciate you considering that as well. And if you could, or we could probably get it from here, but the 5 breakdowns of how you all are, I didn't see that broken down anywhere, you know, like the family engagement, the 5 divisions that's underneath of communications.
It should be on that org chart, the second to
Okay,
last
because
page.
I was trying to write them down, didn't go fast enough. All right, thank you. So that concludes what I was saying. They were all considerations, but before we move to our second round, which we do have a lineup already, I was hoping you could go ahead and re-loop on Board Member Adam Stafford's question really quickly, and then we'll go to our second round, which starts with Board Member Boozer Struther. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, to touch on what Board Member Adam Stafford said, and I think others touched on this as well. So we do have tools that, platforms that we use to measure ROI, that gathers data in terms of public sentiment, engagement, all of that. And these tools tend to be more effective than a Google survey, so to speak, because they're combing every mention on stations, radio, et cetera. And so we do have those tools. What we run into, going back to the media pitching, right, is that some of these platforms have outdated information. And so that's part of that assessment piece. We have to say, this may not be the platform, let's recommend a different platform to the superintendent. So we're constantly looking at those things to be able to increase and elevate.
Thank you so much. And we're going to start our second round. And board members, even if you don't see your light up, I've gotten it already in the queue, so I turn it off. That's just as a heads up. I know people are looking over. Yes, I have it. Board Member Boozer Struther, and don't forget our 2.5 minutes. We're trying hard.
I'm working at it.
You're doing good. You're
I
doing
did
good.
pretty good.
You're doing well.
Okay, we can start. Thank you. I appreciate my colleagues talking about external communications. I'm going to stick with parent hat. For academic engagement, parents are in Canvas, and Canvas needs to be treated as a communications platform. It is an incredible opportunity for teachers to introduce themselves to the entire family, and for an entry point of things feeling organized. So if you go into a Canvas classroom course and it hasn't been filled in with the data about the course and an introduction about the teacher's name, email, which is majority of the cases. So my apologies to the teachers, but I am calling this out. There needs to be an expectation of consistency of that land, because that is the land where the parents go there. First, we learn how to use Canvas, and then we land there, and it feels like the system isn't even being utilized yet. So I want to say this in an encouraging way to remember that parents are in Canvas with students, that there are announcements in there. It can become a major stream of communications. And I would say particularly middle, high school, and I know I'm in there, and I would love to get to know the teachers instantly on day one through their Canvas introduction of themselves. But utilizing Canvas so it doesn't look confusing and overwhelming because they haven't filled in those pages would be my number one request, because it can be a little difficult to navigate. So I have 30 seconds. And I'll just, the school-based websites, more training for the in-house staff member who's raised their hand to do this for school-based, and setting an expectation of what you should see at high school, middle, and elementary of the content on those websites for consistency across the district and access to information from the student and parent perspective. Thank you.
And I'd just like to add, Board Member Boucher Struthers, a lot of what you said, even though it sits on the academic side of the house currently, one of the things that I didn't hear you mention is the accountability. I think regardless of where it sits, whether it's the individual websites, whether it's Canvas, I think some of that boils down to the accountability on our side and making sure that schools do keep it updated, or are focused on ensuring that those introductions happen, or that information is there. So we take heed to that, and we'll make sure to take that into our cabinet meetings.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much. We're going to move to Board Member Adam Stafford, followed by Board Member Briggs.
Thank you so much. I wanted to just touch a little bit on in-school communication. So in my daughter's school, they're leveraging Class Dojo, School Messenger, WhatsApp, email, phone call, everything. So there are a lot of methods that a parent can be engaged, but it could also be very overwhelming because there are many platforms. So if you don't look at Class Dojo, then you may miss a homework assignment, but it also was an email. So it's the concept that I'm trying to get at here is, have you all considered having or empowering schools to maybe perform maybe just a site-based audit to determine with their school community what is the best way for us to communicate with you? We know we have a district standard, but that's the floor and not the ceiling. It's like our community does great on WhatsApp, right? So maybe if you have a community with a large amount of parents who already have WhatsApp and communicating groups on WhatsApp, that may be beneficial. So that I'm just giving that as an idea, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I wanted to also see if you could talk a little bit more about how we're creating pipelines for new careers in digital media, right? So we have students here, and they may not be going into traditional careers like or just going into traditional majors. There are new majors that are being developed in college, or some students may even bypass that and start their own digital agency, right? how are we preparing students to take on maybe some of this load? I think we have so many capable students that could be interns in this department and really show us a thing or two, and that's the way technology works, is that the youth lead it. So I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on that. And then, just a very technical question, are we using SEO to evaluate, our imprint, and could we see some of those metrics in terms of, are we pushing up the stories that are lifting up our community in a positive way? Because I feel like an SEO audit can explain to us, in our digital imprint, where are the areas where we have a negative perception and a positive perception, and what can we do to fix that? Lastly, also, I got 10 seconds. Literacy is our focus, so how can we use our platform to educate our community about literacy? And I know that there are different offices that are under this group, but if that could be the theme, that would be amazing.
Very briefly, to some of the things you said. So with regards to SEO, we are always looking at those things and improvement. That actually is what informed part of the refresh, and we restructured to be able to include stories front and center. If you go on the website, you'll be able to see that. And then we definitely have had discussions about what we can create to help schools, again, that informed autonomy. What can we provide to departments and schools to be able to say, hey, you may want to look at this. Here are some templates. Here's some things you should do. So we'll consider that feedback for sure. And we're definitely interested in interns. So we will be working with Human Resources on that.
Board Member Briggs, and then Board Member Jackson.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair Harris. So just the last pieces that I wanted to say, and this is really kind of a repeat of some of the things that my colleagues have said, but again, the partnership with the community, I think, is really important. That's been understated, so I'm not going to, or emphasize, I'm not going to go down that path. But I did also want to just say, I heard you saying that, and it feels this way to me as an outsider, that the office is kind of stretched really thin, and that there's a lot that's going on and a lot that comms has to do. And I'm wondering if some of these strategies could be offloaded to schools. Like, when you're thinking about, from the administrative level, what information do you all offer? And then what information should be offered at the school level that is more engaging and bringing families in? Because really, I think at this level, like, it is really hard to be personable when you're so disconnected from, I think, the day-to-day of what's happening. That might be an assumption of mine. But what I would want to say is that I think schools are proximate. They understand what's going on. School leaders understand. Every community is different. Every region may have a specific, preference of communication style, issues that they're faced with. And I'm wondering if maybe the strategy could be a toolkit almost to schools to say, here's what you can do. And then you all are thinking more about, like, the fires, right? The funding, the safety, the big things that people really want to know. You're accountable to this. What are you doing about these things? Because that's what they ask us when we go out. So I'm just giving that other perspective that I think, again, I wanted to just say as you're thinking about this toolkit and finalizing it.
And if I can just say, that goes back to the informed autonomy. That is what we're talking about, the development of more toolkits, putting people in the position to be able to continue to move their work forward in an informed manner, and definitely hear all your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Board Member Jackson, followed by Board Member Miller.
Some of the best communicators I know are under the age of like 15. They're even so efficient with communication that they don't even have to use full words. It'd be just like, if you know, why, you okay, whatever, like that. You know what I'm saying? And so when I was, thinking about, just from a strategy, just a suggestion that we have over 130,000 kids or something to that tune. Yep, 133. So it's like we have all of these different kids who have access to all of the platforms that you name, and I think, trying to put our message out there should definitely come from our students. I don't know if there's an opportunity to do like a 1-minute reel, contest on why you love PGCPS so much, but can you think about, well, it won't be 130,000 students, but let's just say we have half of that, put out a 1-minute reel about why they love PGCPS, and think of the reach that it can get by just doing something simple as that. And it will come across way more authentic than something, that's drummed up by the administration. And then the last question that I do have, that was a comment, but the last question I have is that I was at Cole Rice the other day, and we had this men's breakfast where we would just, have real shop talk with, amongst men. So I think it was about 60 men that came out to breakfast. And when we were talking, a lot of the men felt that there were a lot of barriers to volunteerism. And I know I only got a couple of seconds left, but is being backed up in child support, is that a barrier to volunteering? And there were like so many things. So I wanted to see, is there a way that we can streamline that process? Fingerprinting was one of them too, to make sure that our men or just people in general can get in and volunteer without, so many roadblocks. But we want to be safe still.
Yeah, definitely want to hear you in reference to roadblocks, but each situation that has to do with legal orders are different. It may be that, there's a judge that's put an order in place for a parent, but we'd have to look at those situations, each individual situation differently, and making sure, more importantly, that we understand what the orders are by the judge, if there are orders, but we don't want to make any barriers for our parents, especially our men. I think we had a wonderful conference here this past weekend that really offered some of those strategies to stay in place, and really all of the men and women, some of the women were there to support. So I think it's important, and we'll continue to ensure that those doors are wide open.
Thank you so much. Board Member Miller?
Thank you. I want to piggyback on my colleague, Board Member Briggs, as he talked about the different forms of communication, also Board Member Shayla Adams Stafford. So as we think about our district, and you talked about being culturally responsive, and when I think about that, many times we think about cultures, we think about diversity in age, but we also have the diversity in digital natives versus digital immigrants. So the diversity in our district is very wide. And so one of the questions, or maybe comments that I have is, our schools are the experts in their community. And many of the school leaders, say all of the school leaders, are really mastering the craft of how to meet the needs of their community. And then we come over when we want to do systemic communication, whether it's telling our story, whether it's accessing information, whether it is where am I going to get what from, right? So there are different ways in which we communicate. And sometimes, as one of my colleagues said, someone may get the information because I'm always on this platform, so they get this, but they might miss out on that. How do we leverage all of these platforms to ensure that parents are aware, or the community or stakeholders, no matter what the audience is, they're aware and would not miss out on sometimes critical, I'm going to say critical information, because it could be a stakeholder who wants to partner, which could benefit us. But if they miss the information, then we've just missed out on a critical partner. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what we're definitely doing is increasing our number of presentations to principals directly so that they understand the resources and what we have to offer. Additionally, this goes back to that survey component. As we're talking about these things, we're getting feedback to make sure they're understanding what tools are available to them. And then that should be able to tell us, okay, this crowd didn't necessarily get what we needed out of this. Let's circle back to reinforce those resources.
If I could just touch back, I think I was more so focusing on how does the system or your office leverage their expertise, because they are the front line to their community, so that you are, as you think about a system, well, this community, this principal was able to get to their parents to engage this way, and this one was able to get them to engage that way. How do you leverage their expertise?
I think that's where the toolbox come in place. We don't want the toolbox to be so cookie cutter that it's step by step by step. It's leaving the ability to add the personality of that school, of that community, as a part of the tools in that box. But it's a framework that allows schools to say, hey, here's the start of what this could look like. But we want to make sure that our school has its personality in reference to what it looks like as well, because I think you're absolutely right. Our schools, I think a few board members have said it, our schools and our leaders in our schools know our schools better than anybody. our neighborhoods better than anybody, what goes on at evening, at night, morning. So it's leaving that ability to have them to put in what they know is best for their particular community, but it's just infusing some of the best practices in those toolbox that will be extremely helpful moving forward.
And if I could add to that briefly, that is where our parent engagement assistants are instrumental. So we have over 90. They report directly to the principals, but we work with them on a consistent basis, as you see in the fully detailed plan, where we talk about their individual school communities. What do they need? How can we tailor it? And we take that information back as a team, and that informs what we may need to produce to support those individual school communities.
Okay, that makes sense, because I was wondering, how do you tailor from the front end and make it systemically so you know if, here are some of the strategies that I know that won't leave out a certain community?
Thank you so much. Board Member Harris?
So I love that we have so many touch points around communications and that we developed this plan. I think it's important to understand that PGCPS in Prince George's County in general is a unique place. I think it's important to understand not only the infrastructure, but also the culture. When putting out any of these communication strategies, one thing I'd like to understand a bit more, specifically slide 15 under achievements, is we know that each platform that you engage on with communication is different. And so what types of content is being engaged with by what demographic, basically? And so, for example, I know that Instagram is probably something that's more tailored toward our students, while LinkedIn is probably something that's more tailored toward parents. What are we doing to better understand those metrics so that we can then optimize using this as a platform to share the knowledge that is PGCPS, and again, to also push the good things through PGCPS? Another thing I really like to see is an increase in intentional engagement. I really don't want this plan to just be a touch point of saying we want to do more. Well, actually, I'll just read it. So goal 1, objective 3, increase monthly presentations and education to stakeholders as appropriate on structural changes, updated processes, and procedures to facilitate district needs by 50%. To me, that reads almost like death by PowerPoint. I don't want it to be just we're doing more presentations with our community, because I don't think that's something that's needed, right? I think they need intentional engagement, communication going back and forth to say, hey, this is what happened, what do you think? Or just have an open dialogue and form around it, even if it's almost like a speed dating style. And then lastly, for goal 3, objective 1, the Department of Family and Community Partnerships will increase the number of schools with an active parent engagement group by 10%. I really encourage you to engage with board members around that. A lot of us, I'll speak for 7 in particular, within 7, we've gone through an exercise of trying to spin up a parent organization at each school. And what we realize is there are boundaries and barriers when it comes to each school. Each school doesn't particularly have the infrastructure for a PTO or PTSA or things like that. Some schools utilize parent circles. Some schools are just utilizing like a monthly meeting with myself and the principal. And so I think that by engaging with not only PCAC but also board members, that could be elevated. And I think we can actually get over that 10%, because in District 7, increasing it by 10% would be 2 schools.
Thank you so much for that. And I'll take my last 2.5 minutes here. The first is for Canvas. We have parent access available. We don't yet have parent access available in Canvas. I think it's just the child's view that's available at this particular time. So one of the things I would be interested in understanding is, what is the consistent strategy between elementary school, middle school, and high school? And I mean communications. So for instance, in elementary schools, and I think Board Member Boozer Struther talked about this as well as Adam Stafford, it's really in elementary school, we might be leveraging Class Dojo and something, like these are the 3. In middle school, we're graduating up a little bit, we're going to these 2. In high school, maybe it's only Canvas. Whatever that is, what is the, lack of a better word, blueprint strategy for the communications? And then, as Board Member Adam Stafford was saying, then maybe the schools then take either one of those choices that you've already gifted us, and then they talk about what works very well inside of their school, because it would be helpful. Right now, not only is it confusing for parents, but it's also for scholars. At least I know my scholar says, well, I didn't know it was in there. I didn't know my homework was there. So let's get rid of the excuses. Absolutely love it. The next is we are culture. And I love that about Prince George's County. And so as we start to see different cultures resonating for our stories, really seeing those different cultures. So I know in Board Member Briggs' community, he has a large Haitian population, I believe. No? Okay. Well, there's a large Haitian population in a number of our districts. There might be a large African, there might be a large Hispanic, et cetera, as we go away around. And if we can start to see that, then that also is our narratives as well. Our hashtag, just understanding that again would be great. So anything we can help to get out, hashtag PGCPS proud, or wherever you're pulling that information, that's again the narrative that we can help to start as well. And the last that I just want to touch on right here is the Jumpstart update. I loved the Jumpstart update from PCAC. And so if we update that, that'll be amazing for us to be able to push forward. Thank you so much on that. I did just want to say thank you, Mr. Morales, and to Mr. House for the contributions that you gave tonight, where our communications is in fact going, and to our board members, really excellent points that everyone made, and we gifted a lot of considerations for communications to consider, to engage differently, to leverage not only us, but our scholars in different ways, our teachers. It's going to be amazing as we move forward. So I know Mr. Fitzpatrick has gotten a lot of notes that we'll add to the tracker and we'll get out to our constituents. Thank you so much. This is all about framing our PGCPS narrative. And with that, any follow-up items will be posted in board docs for our public and on the board website upon receipt of these follow-up items, particularly from this meeting here. And there being no further business, the time is now 6:27 p.m. If there are no objections, the October 17th, 2024 agenda for the Prince George's County Board of Education work session will be adjourned. Are there any objections? Hearing none, thank you so much, and thanks for coming out tonight, our audience. If you can stop the recording.